Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
For the Raiders.
They're the keys to this defense. Let's be real. Byron Young and Tyree Wilson are going to be what makes this defense respectable this year or bottom five. If those guys don't come out and make an impact and they're just guys like Butler and Farrell were last year, this defense is not going to be good. It's not even going to be top 20. Like, those guys have to get to the quarterback and affect the game, because those are the two guys that they've brought in on this defensive line. That's it. Those are the two guys. So those guys have to step in. They can't be losing snaps to the rest of the guys on this roster, because the rest of these guys on this roster aren't very good on the defensive line, other than Max Crosby.
The kid from ASU is not a guy who you're looking to not a guy you're looking for like to make big plays. It got to be one of those two guys. And you can't tell me on Twitter like everybody's tweeting at me, let Ziegler cook. And then this pick is, and Christian Gonzalez has 6 interceptions in his rookie. What's his name? Gonzalez from the Patriots has 6 interceptions to start the season. Like, you can't do it. I can't do it as far as that goes.
I do find it interesting they brought in 2 defensive tackles, or 2 interior defensive linemen the last 2 days, and Isaac Rochelle and then Kyle Pecco, who are both on this roster at the end of last year. So hopefully that's not correlated to Byron Young missing a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I don't see why they needed those guys.
Where's Billings? Where'd he go?
Chicago, I think.
Chicago?
I think it was Chicago.
Okay.
But right now, like, if they lined up today and they're playing, it's Bilal Nichols and maybe Tillery or Farrell is the other interior guy. They need 3. And then Butler, maybe Jordan Willis, but he's more of a sub-package guy. Mm-hmm. So, like, they don't have a ton of guys they can line up and say, these are our 3 guys inside. Jonathan Hankins isn't here anymore. They traded him last year. So they need a big body inside, whether that's Adam Butler, Neil Farrell, John Jenkins, one of those guys, and then they still need 2 others. Nichols is going to be one of them. They still need a third. And hopefully it's not Jerry Tillery playing 60 snaps a game.
Yeah, he played entirely way too much as far as that goes. Let's see here. Herbert, division rival. Herbert got paid. We can talk about that for a little bit before we go to your comments and questions. What are your thoughts about Herbert? I mean, obviously, I was in a lot of Twitter spaces and talking. We had an AFC West one the other day. Shout out to Witt, who's been on the show and has had they put together all these AFC West roundtables and spaces. And I was telling everybody, I didn't hear anything, I didn't know anything, but I was just like, you can't, if you're Justin Herbert and his agent, you can't take the field this year without a deal. Like, I just thought they couldn't take the field this year without a deal. The deal got done, and now he is going to be a Charger for a long time and be a rich man.
He's under contract through 2029. Got a 5-year extension, so he's still, I think, 6 years on that contract. Upwards of $218 million guaranteed. And I think it was 195, like, really guaranteed, with a chance to get up to 218. That's a lot of money. They're paying him $52 million a year, something like that. But that's the going rate for a young franchise quarterback, and that's what he is. I think Joe Burrow will sign any day now for 5 years, $265 million. So he's going to up him by a couple million, would be my guess. And then that's what these guys are going to make. You hit on a quarterback in the top 10 that can lead your franchise. That's the cost of doing business. So the Bengals are going to have to really figure out how to supplement that roster around him, and then obviously the Chargers are going to have to make some tough decisions in the next year or two once that contract kicks in. And now I look to Kansas City and see Patrick Mahomes. Do you know what his guaranteed money was on that $450 whatever million deal he signed? It was like $63 million guaranteed. That's all he got.
Yeah.
So that contract's looking pretty nice right now with the Chiefs for what they paid Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see. And then obviously the Chris Jones saga is going on in Kansas City, who's reportedly asking for $30 million a year, which would be just south of what Aaron Donald's making with the Rams. Kansas City really going to give him $30 million a year? We'll see.
Interesting to see if they can do that. They had, they start 7 rookies last year on that defense last year. So maybe they can, maybe the rest swing a deal. Also, would you give up? It's not about it's really not about. Um, how can I say this? This is really not about the picks because why? But Washington wants to try to look to trade Chase Young. Like, would you got to pay him, right? I mean, because they don't care about they don't care about the picks. It's all about paying him. Would you pay Chase Young?
Hopefully the Raiders don't have to. Hopefully Tyree Wilson turns out to be a good player because
It's
you
true.
can't go out and pay Chase Young because you allocated resources in a top 10 pick to an edge rusher. So I don't think Chase Young didn't have his 5th year picked up. So if they did move him and someone picked him up, he'd be a free agent next year. I would not be in the market for Chase Young just based on the allocation that they've already given to Wilson, and then obviously Crosby got paid, and Chandler Jones still has this year. So there's really no snaps for Chase Young. And then how healthy is that knee? There's
Yeah.
a reason it took him a long time to come back, and then they ran from him in the minute they could. So I'd question what the medical looks like on that as well.
Yeah, interesting situation there with Chase Young, who will take that risk and move him. Dorian from Gilroy, California wants to know about Josh Jacobs. When do we think he'll be back, and do you think he will be motivated during this season? I would say he's not going to miss a game. I think he'll be back ready to go. I think he'll be in shape. I think that they're going to have to split carries. And in this, I think in the games that they play, the inter squad games that they play, you're gonna see Zamir White. You're gonna see some of these running backs, and you're gonna see if they can actually get the job done because the plan has to be that they're moving on from Josh Jacobs, or at least giving these guys more of a chance to see what they have. I don't think you're going to see another year where he has 15 carries or whatever he had last year.
I think ultimately, probably in a perfect world, you see Josh Jacobs after the 2nd preseason game. So that gives him the week leading into the 3rd preseason game, plus the next week to get, I think it's a week to 10 days before the regular season kicks off. So that gives him roughly 17 to 20 days of practice and being around the facility. So if he misses the first 2 weeks of the preseason, I'm okay with that. I don't think Saquon Barkley signing today really moves the needle for Josh Jacobs because it's the same contract, $10.1 million. They gave him a chance to make a little bit extra money in incentives. Like the Raiders could do that, but the downside to that is if you tag him next year, that counts. So that it's 120% of what that ends up being. So you're making it a little heftier for next year. If the Raiders do plan on moving on next year, which I don't think they are. I mean, if you took a guy in the 4th round and the 7th round and you get an all-pro running back and you don't play those guys and they kind of just linger on the roster, I'm okay with that. I don't think you have to play them because you took him in the 4th and 7th round. It's not like they took him in the 1st or 2nd. But if Josh Jacobs does end up missing time and is not there for week 1, which I find hard to believe because he really has no leverage at this point, and those guys do play well for 2 or 3 weeks, that gives the front office more ammunition. So if I'm Josh Jacobs, I'm going to report, get ready. I want to play week 1. I don't want those guys getting the ball because if the Raiders don't want to pay me, I want to showcase myself for the rest of the league. So maybe someone does.
Yeah, that you mentioned the number one thing. The last thing his camp or he would want is like if Zamir goes off against the Broncos for like 160, then hey, do we really need to? Hey, Josh, take your time. Don't come. You don't have to come back. So and then you're losing your job that way. So I think he'll be back. Gina wants to know about Alex Bars. How can we remove him from the roster? I think that was a good one. I appreciate that. That was on Instagram. You can reach on Instagram and put on waivers _ podcast and also on Threads the same way. I thought it was cool. That was a funny question, but yeah, listen. Somebody has to beat him out. He's not a dominant player by any stretch of the imagination, but he is liked by the coaching staff. But there are people, McClendon, Dalton Wagner, but Dalton Wagner might be more of a tackle than an inside guy. So somebody on the inside has to beat him, and somebody beats him. then we'll see. I mean, Muta from Denver, like I don't know, like I mean, someone else. We hope somebody beats him, but they gotta be a guy who has NFL starting ability. Otherwise, it's you're replacing Alex Bars with an Alex Bars type who has a different name.
Well, I'll make it easy for you. I started a new Madden season yesterday with an updated roster. I released Alex Bars the second I could.
Yes.
So I got him off my roster. But yeah, it's gonna have if one of those other right tackles really steps up and takes that job and Illuminor moves in, then I think Bars is in trouble. Greg Von Rotten came over, who's been an NFL starter. If a guard comes open on the free agent market they like, if like I said, if Justin Herron can play inside as well as tackle and give you some versatility, if McClendon Curtis has a good camp, if they decide they want to keep Haranis Grasso as the backup center and he can also play guard and they don't want to move Parham at all, maybe they decide at some point, hey, there's a veteran out there we like maybe a Gabe Jackson wants to come back and play for league minimum or something. But there are better players out there. I think this coaching staff are looking more at just the continuity. These guys will play together, so let's see what happens. But I'm hoping that Alex Bars doesn't make the final 53.
Yeah, I'm gonna let it play out and just chill, and I'm gonna do the same thing that Ryan does and just hope that he's not on the roster. I know Matt Holder, who come on the shows, like he hates Alex Bars as well. Not as a person, just as a football player.
I think Mutai, like you said, is the guy. Like if he shows up and he pushes him, he's a younger player, he's a more powerful player. He's the guy. Him and Van Rotten, if they both outplay Bars, then I could see Bars not making this team.
Yeah, so you see Ryan is giving you those attributes that he sees on Madden that Mutai is better than a lot of those things that he does. Smitty wants to know who's the fourth wide receiver on this team. So if you're gonna go by the premise of Renfro being one, I'm not one, sorry, but like Renfro, Myers, and Adams are gonna be the top three. Who's the third one? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm thinking about, but I know Dorsett has experience. I know Keelan Cole was on this team last year, but I do think that DeAndre Carter has a spot on this team for some reason. I mean, I think that them going out and get him, I think made sense for what they want to do. They like the player, so they're going to bring him in. I think my guy, the DJ Turner, is probably going to be this probably be his last training camp with the Raiders. And then the second part of the question was Trey Turner. I think towards the end of the year, I mean, who knows? This offense is not easy, but he's a guy who they probably want to be a deep threat for Josh McDaniels' offense.
Yeah, this is similar to me as the cornerback room. There's a clear-cut top three, and that's Adams, Myers, and Renfro. And then the rest of this group is battling for 2 to 3 roster spots, whether it's 5 or 6 that they keep. Let's say they keep 6. Mm-hmm. That's 3 spots for Cole, Dorsett, Carter, Sims, Tucker, Turner. And it's kind of similar to the running back room. Like if they think Dorsett, the speed, playing on the outside, being familiar with this offense, being a veteran, I would say he probably has the leg up. I personally like Sims. I think it's a bigger body, 6'5", can really play on the outside. He doesn't bring you anything inside. Carter, if they want to play a guy on the inside, kind of a fast guy, some return ability, he's kind of similar to Tucker. I think DJ Turner doesn't make this team. I think Keelan Cole doesn't make this team as well. So if it was me and I'm keeping 6, it's Adams, Myers, Renfro, Carter, Tucker, and then I make a decision between Sims or Dorsett. Which one do I want to keep? Do I want the bigger guy that can be a red zone target, or do I want the deep threat? I probably lean Dorsett, although I do like Sims as a player.
Should be. There was a reason why I think I went Carter over Sims is I feel like with Devontae and Myers, they have a couple big body guys are there already, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, those guys are these are the players who are going to have to ball out and
those guys are going to go inside though and play in the slot as well. Like Adams and Myers will both spend time inside.
Yeah, interesting. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I mean, DeAndre Carter beat the Raiders in week 1 last year, so hopefully
legend, former Raider DeAndre Carter, his second stint with the Raiders.
DeAndre Carter. Oh my God. Let's see here. Last one from Robert wants to know about the He's in Escondido, California. Question about the linebacking core. He just says it's bad. Can they sign? Is there anybody out there who they could see who you think they would sign to make it a little bit better? And I don't know who's free agent linebackers right now.
If you're looking at like Quan Alexander, if you're talking about
Alexander.
inside linebackers, because there's pass
Yeah,
rushers, Calvin Miles Jack, I believe, is still out there. There's a couple guys that are veterans that can come in. I think they're asking a lot of Robert Spillane, who's never been a full-time starter, and Devin Diablo, who's never been a full-time starter. They're counting on those guys to be healthy and play a lot because behind them, this is probably the worst linebacker group in the NFL, inside linebacker back, because you're looking at Masterson and Butler and Bernie's a rookie and Bolden and Drake Thomas is a rookie. Like, there's really nothing there. If one of those guys gets hurt, and when I'm playing Madden, I had this happen to me today. David Diablo got hurt, and then they tried to put Chandler Jones or Tyree Wilson in an inside linebacker, and I'm looking at the depth chart. I'm like, I guess I got to throw Masterson out there, but like I don't want to do that. So maybe there's a veteran they bring in. They probably want to get through a couple weeks of camp to see what they have with this group. But if they're going to upgrade, if there's another upgrade coming on this roster before the 53 is set, I believe it's going to be an inside linebacker, because those guys have to stay healthy and they have to play every snap. And I'm not sure Spillane can play in the nickel full time for 17 weeks as a coverage guy. So if there's a linebacker out there that they can bring in, I would expect them to do that.
So the thing that I worry about, and it's what you just said, is giving somebody an opportunity is fine, but when somebody hasn't done it, Spillane hasn't done it, Diablo hasn't done it, Duke Shelley hasn't done it. Like, some of these guys have not played full time 17 game seasons. I'm going to be as cautious as humanly possible with this defense, because I don't know what you can expect out of it. And then think about it for a second. If Tillery is your starting defensive tackle along with Bilal Nichols, people are going to hand the ball off and just run the football all day. And you're not going to be able to get to third and long, and you're not going to be able to get to a time where Tyree Wilson or Max Crosby or Chandler Jones can go get the quarterback.
So here's the inside linebackers that are available. Just looking it up real quick on my phone. Zach Cunningham, Deion Jones, Miles Jack, Quan Alexander, Jared Davis, Jayon Brown. That's basically the group. They had Brown last year. Didn't really do much. So
yeah,
maybe they take a flyer on Jones. These guys are going to have to come in, though, and probably be backups until they can beat one of those guys out. I think they really want Diablo and Spillane. So that's kind of where you're probably running into some issues. You're probably calling the agent of Cunningham or Jones or Jack or Alexander and saying, hey, we want to bring you in as depth. And they're like, well, we'll just wait for a starting job. Maybe as we get closer to the season, they can bring one of those guys in as depth. But those guys probably don't want to sign right now, knowing that they're probably not going to start week one.
And we've had some big injuries happen so far, and so it could definitely happen to somebody's defense. So it makes sense. And if you're one of those guys, you're really gonna tell me that you want me as a depth piece behind who? Divine who? Come on, that's kind of crazy. Is Deion Jones from the Falcons? He used to be on the Falcons. He used to wear 45.
He was with the Browns last year. They traded him. And he wasn't very good. But
you don't want to getting starters in August and July is not what you want to do. Not what you want to do.
All right. There's a pathway here for the Raiders to have cap room. All they have to do is convert back, $11 million of Jimmy G's salary into a signing bonus or roster bonus. They can move $14 million of Colton Miller. Like, they can get a lot of cap room here pretty quickly if they want to, pretty easily.
Yeah, and then giving somebody money up front as far as that goes. So Ryan, do you have anything else you want to throw on any more steak you want to throw on the grill?
No, I think the biggest thing, and we kind of hit on, is there's depth in the cornerback room, there's depth in the wide receiver room, but is it productive depth? Is it depth that you're really going to want out there if there are injuries to the top 2 or 3 guys in each room, or is it just going to be a parade of guys like it's been for the last few years? So that's where all these draft picks they've missed on are really hurting them, is they just don't have those young players. They're relying on veterans, maybe are coming off an injury, coming off a down season. I'm really interested to see how this cornerback room really does shake out, and who is going to be the starters. I would assume right now on the outside, you're looking at Hobbs and Peters. Who plays the slot? Are they going to be primarily a nickel team? Are they going to play more base this year just because it seems like they have more bodies? What do they do with Duke Shelley? Is he inside? Is he outside? What do they do with Amik Robertson? What do they do with some of these guys like Sam Webb? Is he going to make this roster? I don't know. And then what do they do with the safety position? Is Roderick Teamer going to be on this team? Is he going to get beat out by Johnson, the guy they brought up from Buffalo? Is he going to get beat out by Pull-Em-Out? Like, there's some questions at the bottom of this roster. There's questions like the bottom 20 on this roster. Like, are they really NFL caliber, guys you can trust to come in and start for a few weeks? Or is it just, we're just churning the bottom of the roster over and over for the next couple seasons? Like they've literally done for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Interesting. It's
a lot of 1-year deals again. So
a lot of 1-year deals. I mean, I've seen this before. A lot of 1-year deals. I've seen this before. Let's see what happens. All right, Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us here on the Put On Raiders podcast. We'll see you next time, and let's keep this thing rolling.
All right, take care.
Peace.